Hey everybody, this is Swazo with True Chicago Sports Fans, the podcast. Today's guest is Isaias Velazques. He's an independent wrestler right now wrestling for Freelance Wrestling. I was able to talk to Isaias on his early beginnings in wrestling all the way to capturing the title for Freelance Wrestling and much more. Stay tuned.
What's up, man?
What's going on, brother?
Not much. How are you?
You know, just dealing with the pandemic one day at a time.
That's all you can do, right?
That's all we're doing, yeah. Glad I was able to catch you, man. So, just going to ask you a couple questions, see how you're doing. I know we're on lockdown, so I know you haven't been performing at all. So how's that been affecting you?
Surprisingly enough, it's a blessing and also a curse. Blessing in terms of I finally get to rest my body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, pro wrestling, it has that notion of people always saying, oh, it's fake and everything. But one of the main reasons, too, why a lot of wrestlers get offended when you hear that is because, all those moves that we're doing, some things are, trained, I guess you could say, or taught, like on how to fall and how to do certain things, but they still hurt. It's never not the case of it not hurting. And I've had so many injuries from head to toe, I can't even, it's ridiculous. And not only that, it's just like so many nagging injuries that I had while I was wrestling through. Like I sprained my ankle and I was still wrestling on a sprained ankle, like wrapping my ankle up every single match with like an entire roll of athletic tape. I had got dropped on my head maybe almost a year ago. It was last August, and my neck has just been annihilated. But I would wake up or out the next day just sore beyond belief, not being able to turn my head. And now with like this lockdown, I've been able to rest up everything. And then, you know me from the past. Like I'm actually a personal trainer, so I've been able to do rehab on all the injuries that I've had. And now I feel great. It's really weird to feel normal now.
I mean, that's the blessing in disguise, that you are your own personal trainer and you know how to rehab everything. So you've been able to get to that firsthand, like, okay, I know what this injury is, I know how to rehab it, and I know how long it's going to take.
And then, like, the cursed part is just, I miss going out there and performing and wrestling in front of fans and just interacting with all the other wrestlers and stuff, because not only do I wrestle, but I'm also a trainer at the Freelance Wrestling Academy, and being able to go and teach people or help people take that step into wrestling and help them along their way training. I see them twice a week, and not to be able to see them is a little sad. I miss them.
So when was the last time you took a bump?
I know we had trained, I think it was probably a week. Was it a week? It was a week before we got locked down. So it's been, what is that? How I don't even know how long it's been since.
Yeah, I've lost track of time. It's got to be over 2 months at this point.
Yeah, because I lost track after a month. After that, I didn't count anything. I was like, it's quarantine day, whatever. It's just, it's too long. That's what it is. But however long quarantine has been, that's about the time that, the last time I've actually been in a ring and bumped and stuff.
How do you think that's going to affect you when you first take your first bump back?
It's funny because the joke going around with a lot of us is saying, oh, I can't wait for that first bump. I think it's going to hurt so bad. But like how I was telling you that my body feels normal again, I'm hoping that it's not going to be terrible and that my body's just kind of going to go into a little bit of shock, but then it's going to remember, and I'm going to, build that callus up again.
Right, that's exactly what I was thinking. You got to build that callus, that resistance to the mat again and the ropes.
Yeah, so I'm sure I'll probably get back into the swing of things, giving me maybe 2 training sessions, probably even 3, hopefully, but we'll see.
So, just going to start from the beginning. What got you into wrestling?
I remember watching it with my dad for the first time. I didn't know anything about wrestling or didn't even know that it existed. And my dad sat me down and told me to watch wrestling with him. I think I was 7 years old, and it was WWF at the time.
Right.
And I remember just seeing these larger than life characters performing, and I was hooked instantly. And then from that point on, I just literally just continued watching. And then I remember one day, I told myself, and I told my family and like my friends and stuff. Like I told my dad, I told my dad I want to be a wrestler when I grow up. And I remember my dad laughed at me, which is funny now. At the time, it was heartbreaking. But my dad laughed at me, and then all my friends just basically made fun of me throughout my entirety of grammar school. And then I remember telling my mom, like, hey, I want to be a wrestler when I grow up. And she said, you could do anything you could be anything that you want to be, and I'll always support and love you. And that's like, ever since then, I just kind of just continued watching wrestling religiously as a kid, all like through high school. And then I had met my best friend in high school, and he loved wrestling just as much as I did. And he told me, he said, hey, when we graduate, we should find a wrestling school and go learn how to be wrestlers together. I said, if you find a wrestling school, I'll go. And it was when we graduated high school. I think it was spring semester of college. He found Windy City Pro Wrestling, which is not running anymore. And we went just for a tour and a quote unquote consultation, just to talk to the owner and everything and see the place. And I remember I signed up that same day.
Wow, just dove into the deep end of the pool, like, let's go.
Oh, yeah. I remember the promoter being shocked. He said, oh, you are? And I'm like, yeah, I'll just sign up right now. And I signed up right away. My best friend, Pedro, didn't sign up because he was away in college at Antioch College in Columbus, Ohio. So when he came back for summer break, then he signed up, and he wrestled as well, too, there. But yeah, it's just that happened and never going back. Like it never turned back.
So did you play sports in high school?
I played baseball.
You played baseball?
I played from the age of 8 all the way until 18. I actually also got offered a scholarship to a college to play baseball, and I actually turned it down because the college that offered me the scholarship, they didn't have graphic design.
Okay.
As any majors or any classes. It wasn't an art school, so they didn't have anything as it pertained to computers, and that's what I was like really into at the time. And I remember I turned it down because of that. But yeah, I played baseball. I played center field and second base.
Nice. So at this point, your first, second year of college, you're in wrestling school. Mm-hmm. You're still watching the product? I'm assuming at this point. I mean, this is what, late 90s, 2000s?
2004.
2004. So this is the end of the Attitude Era. This is a ruthless aggression kind of era coming into to what you're watching. So big transition. So obviously you got hooked by watching wrestling as a kid. What match do you always like gravitate to that say that's what got me into it? And then follow that up with what match, as you're training, as you're more of an adult at this point, what match do you say, okay, this is what I want to style myself after?
So I can't remember specifically what match got me hooked as a kid. I could always remember, though, what match I continuously watched on repeat all the time.
Yeah.
That was, I forget what year it was, but it was SummerSlam, and it was Razor Ramon versus Shawn Michaels in a ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship.
Classic, right? Yeah, just classic.
It was it was a rematch from the previous WrestleMania ladder match that they had.
Right.
And I remember watching that match continuously over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That was with the one match that I always watched. I know when I first started getting into everything, I remember watching King of the Ring where Bret Hart won.
Yes.
And I remember watching the Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect match, and that match was amazing. That was what basically ignited me to have Bret Hart as my favorite wrestler as a kid.
He's just a technical, just specimen. Just everything is just so perfect the way he does everything.
Yeah, he was awesome. I know everybody's always either Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart, but I was Bret Hart. My favorite wrestler was Bret Hart, and then of course, like I ended up liking Shawn Michaels as well too. I like both of them. So
yeah, I mean it's apples and oranges, but they're still both great wrestlers. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the match after I had been in wrestling and training was probably from TNA at the time. It was AJ Styles versus Christopher Daniels in a 30-minute Iron Man match. That was the match that I remember watching, and I was a humongous AJ Styles fan. So at that point, I was telling myself that's what I kind of like model myself after, I guess you could say.
I mean, AJ's another workhorse. He's another Shawn Michaels. He can go 60 minutes, 90 minutes. You ask him to do something, he's gonna perform it and just blow it out of the stadium. Like he's just that amazing. And it's, I mean, I'm glad that we're able to see him on the big stage now. But watching his early matches, they're just as good.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Talk to me about the wrestling school. What was your experiences with the wrestling school?
The wrestling school that I came up with?
Yes.
It was definitely, it was harder. And it was funny because it was cool. The way that they explained it was, this is the old school mentality of training, which is in large part a lot of tough love, and you have to have very thick skin, and you have to be mentally tough in order to go through everything. But I remember them always telling us, if you think this is tough, we had it even tougher than you guys. And they would always say that, which I wouldn't doubt, but it was very demanding. They would make us do a lot, but at the time it sucked going through it. But I remember after my first training, my first training day, I remember after that first day, I remember driving home and just big smile on my face, even though I was exhausted and on the verge of throwing up. It was amazing. And I thank them a lot because I was basically the smallest guy in the school.
Okay.
So I was always the test dummy for new moves that people wanted to do. And even when we had practice matches, they would always throw me around. And I remember one training session, me and another guy that I came up with, we were the only two that actually showed up to training. And the trainer and the assistant basically had a wrestling match with us for 2 hours. And they literally just did every move they know. And they just beat the crap out of us for 2 hours. But I honestly remember that match and look back at it and think that definitely helps me be physically tough in the ring and be able just to go through everything.
I mean, 2 hours with the person. I mean, it's literally personal training, and they're tossing you around and they're showing you how to take these moves and how to perform, and that is both physically and mentally tough right there.
Yeah, it was something. I remember us telling it was like a Tuesday practice, and that Thursday, because we would have training days Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And me and the guy that showed up, his name is Marche Rocket.
Okay.
Me and him, we were always at every single training day. And I remember when we showed up on that Thursday, everyone showed up. And because Tuesdays were known to be really hard, physically hard to push through, because it was like an hour of calisthenics right beforehand. Then if it was nice outside, we would go run a mile. Then we would come back in and do running the ropes, and then we would start training. And so you were basically blown out of the water already by the time you actually started doing anything that you wanted to do in the ring, as far as moves go. And I remember me and him on that Thursday, we were giving everybody crap, saying, "Where were you guys at?" Everybody, they didn't believe that we were in the ring with them for about 2 hours and just having a wrestling match, essentially. I mean, we did take breaks, but it was literally just nonstop, just wrestling. But yeah, I was talking to one of my students. It was just, I loved it, even though it was really hard. I pushed through everything, and I remember just always being the first trying to be the first one there, either me or Marche, trying to be the first one there and the last one to leave every training day. Every single time they offered training, we were always there. And I just tried to take as much advantage of it as possible, just to learn as much as I can. And it paid off because I know within 3 months of was it 4 months? That was 4 months. 4 months of me starting training, I had my first match. And there were guys there that were literally training for maybe close to a year, and they haven't had their first match. So I don't know if it was just the promoter was able to see the passion or, the drive that we had to like continuously just try to get better and take advantage of everything, or if it was they knew that we were ready, which I would like to believe that it was both.
Yeah, I mean, the work ethic was there, the passion was there, and then, they were able to trust us, especially 2-hour session. They're like, okay, well, these guys are really legit. They want to go,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure you got the nod from the trainers after that session. Like, okay, these guys are really serious about this. Let's see what we can do with them, and let's see how we can develop them. I mean, that's intense. And in the wrestling business, in my opinion, it looks like, the cream rises to the top. If your work ethic is there and you're always someone that they can rely on, they're going to turn to you.
Yeah.
What was something that you struggled with?
Hard work gets rewarded for sure in wrestling. It always gets noticed as well. Too. Something that I always tell the students that I train now. Probably just the conditioning at first. It's really hard because you can basically run 3 miles or 6 miles and feel like you're in really good shape and be physically in shape as far as going to the gym and being consistent and stuff. But there's nothing like being in ring shape. There's just being in shape, being in ring shape, and it's very similar to other sports. Kind of like how we were talking about The Last Dance,
right?
And that part where Michael Jordan was saying, like, I was in shape as a baseball player, but I wasn't in shape as a basketball player.
Yeah, just night and day. Night and day, correct.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember I had always been into fitness as a kid in high school and then going into college. So I'd always worked out, and I thought I was in okay shape. And then once wrestling started, it's just, you can, like how I said, you could run 3 miles, but then you could be in the ring for maybe 2 minutes and you'd be dying, just dripping sweat and just out of breath. That was probably the hardest part for me, was just the conditioning aspect of it. And then just, all the physical pain that you go through. I had gotten dropped on my head maybe 8 months in, and I remember I couldn't breathe without like hugging a pillow when I was sitting down.
Ouch.
It was just hard. It was just rough. And then another time, like I broke in my left ankle. So it's just that would probably be like the hardest part. But other than that, though, I loved it.
So what was your family reaction now that you're like, oh, I'm going to wrestling school full time. This is exactly what I've been to do. I've told you guys since I was a kid. Now you're going through this, and then you're coming home, and your family's seeing these injuries. What was their reaction like?
My mom would just shake her head, and she would just say, I don't know why you do this to yourself. That was her reaction all the time. She would always just tell me that. She still does it to this day. Whenever I get hurt, why you do this to yourself? And I'm like, you should know by now. Like,
it's part of the nature, yeah.
Yeah.
So in this wrestling school, and you're learning the physical aspects, you're learning how to get conditioning. Were you learning how to like create a move set for yourself as a wrestler? I mean, how does that come about?
I think for me, it was more so just, I know for a lot of guys too, it's just watching a lot of wrestling. So it's just tape study,
right?
I guess you could say. Just watching the people that you like and knowing your limitations. So, but like me, I know I could do a backflip, but would I dare do a moonsault or something in the ring? Probably not, because I'm not that confident with doing a backflip.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, some moves look really cool, but you have to know how your body actually works and what you can do in the ring and how you move your body. For me, it was just watching a lot of the guys like Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, all those guys from WCW, and then Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. And you kind of take one move here, one move there from certain people, and you kind of put it together, and it creates your own style.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I told him that my favorite wrestler was Bret Hart. And when he was surprised, and then he said, "You know what? I see that now. Like, seeing you wrestle, I could see how your favorite wrestler was Bret Hart." Because sometimes you just pick up mannerisms and you don't even know it.
Like, what's something you've picked up that someone told you about?
What's that?
What's something, what mannerism you picked up that they say, you know what, that's Shawn Michaels, or that's Kurt Angle?
It was funny because one of my biggest influences was a wrestler named Alex Shelley, who predominantly worked for TNA and for Ring of Honor, and he's still wrestling to this day. And back in February, or it was January, sorry, I got to wrestle him one-on-one, and I remember going out there and then coming back, and then people coming up to me and telling me, "I can see exactly why Alex Shelley was your favorite wrestler, because you guys, there were certain things that you guys did where you moved the same way."
Wow.
And that was just something that I guess it was just for me watching a lot of his matches and just like picking up on things and just mimicking it without even knowing. Yeah.
So staying on the same topic with the moveset, how did you create or what was your thinking coming up with what's called a finisher, your ending move to win a match?
I'm trying to think of what originally I wanted my finisher to be. I feel like I remember I went to training and I told the trainers that I wanted this to be my finisher, and they told me, "No, you're too small. You can't do that against a guy who's 6'4" and 300 pounds or whatever."
Okay.
It wouldn't look right. But I know the finisher that I have now is a double underhook pile driver. Okay. And I remember always watching Bret Hart do a pile driver, and I thought it was cool. And then I remember Shawn Michaels always doing a pile driver on the steel steps in big matches.
Right.
Which looked devastating. And I remember I always liked that move. And then I remember watching a ring of... So I was at a standstill. I'd always liked those moves, but I was always after they shot down my finisher idea, I was at a standstill, not trying to decide, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And I remember watching an old Ring of Honor DVD, and a guy by the name of Jay Briscoe did the double underhook pile driver, which he calls the J Driller. Okay. And it looked nasty. And I said, "Oh, maybe I can do that," because it goes back to the pile drivers that Bret and Shawn used to do, and now that looked crazy. And I remember I was scared, really scared to do it at training. I put down so many mats, and I remember I practiced it by just falling, and then I practiced it. One of my friends was just telling me, "Just do it. Just do it to me. Go, go, go. I trust you. Just do it." And I did it on the mats, and I did it on the mats, and nothing happened. And then finally he said, "Just take the mats out. Just do it on the ring." And I was like, I remember I was so scared. And I did it. And as soon as I did it, I got him. I was like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And ever since then, I think it's been my finisher since 2007, and I never changed it.
Oh, wow.
I think it's 2000. No, it's 2005, I believe. But yeah, so it's been my finisher since then.
I mean, that gives anybody an impression of how much it takes to come up with a move that looks devastating, but really doesn't hurt the person.
Oh yeah.
I mean that's a lot of what wrestling is, as far as making it look like it hurts so much, and it takes two to tango. Is there another move that you were considering besides the pile driver?
I can't remember.
No.
I really can't. Yeah, I can't think of what else I was considering. I know that was the one that. That was just the one that I remember coming up with after they shot down the other one.
Right. Now that from the beginning to now, you've evolved a lot as far as your skill set, and now I'm pretty sure you've picked up different move sets. or added to your repertoire. What is something that you've like, you know what, I'm going to add that? Or that you've seen something recently, like, hey, you know what, I can do that. I'm going to add it to my moveset. Or this might be possible for a finisher. I don't know. Like something like that. Is there something that you picked up from wrestlers recently?
Not recently.
Okay.
I know for me too, I try to stay away from moves that I see other wrestlers doing. If anything, I try to do moves that nobody really is doing at the time.
So looking back, going back maybe to the 80s, and looking at wrestlers that, no longer performing or no one's using their moveset, maybe something that picking out of there?
Yeah, kind of. I know I would do that, or I would just see moves that I think look cool to me, and they fit the limitations that I can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably adapted to. I know one of the moves that's it's probably my most athletic move that I do, and it's called the standing sliced bread. I don't know if you watch WWE, seeing Kalisto do it.
Right. Brian Kendrick used to do it.
Exactly, yeah. But I do it, or the Ultimo Dragon, the Saudi DDT. But he just stands and he just does it from off the floor, and that's the one that I do, and that's probably the most athletic move that I do. I would like to think, because it's probably the most dangerous. I know a lot of people say like, "Oh, probably do a lot of crazy moves." I'm like, that's the craziest move I do. Yeah. Everything else is just a lot of kicks. A lot of kicks.
Yeah, watching a couple of matches, I'm like, yeah, it's a lot of kicks in there. So now we're at the end of wrestling school. How did you transition from being at the wrestling school to actually joining an organization where you'll be wrestling full time? For that.
So for the longest, the school that I was training at, they were also a promotion that they ran shows as well. And I know when I was there, they had a mentality of, if you're training here, you're wrestling here, you can't wrestle anywhere else.
Okay.
They were only running shows possibly maybe once every 3 months. Eventually they picked up and they started doing once a month. But at the start, I remember it was literally for probably about the first 2 years of my wrestling career, I was wrestling maybe once a month or once every 3 months. It wasn't that consistent. And I was always scared of doing the wrong thing, so I didn't ask, "Oh, hey, can I start wrestling here? Or would you recommend any other places to wrestle at, so that way I could start learning more from other wrestlers and just getting more experience under my belt." And I was always scared until I met the friends that I came up with. We all started kind of just talking, and then one of my friends was, "Hey, we need to go out and start learning. That's the only way we're going to learn, if we keep wrestling each other and wrestling once a month or once every 3 months. We're not going to grow like how we want to." So we literally would start just getting in cars together and driving to shows. And I remember one of the first ones that we did was we drove 3 hours to a show in Indiana and got paid $10 amongst the 6 of us. And we were the happiest guys ever. Didn't even pay for gas or for all of us to eat. We were excited, and we went home with a big smile on our face because we took that step and started going out. And it kind of started from there, and we started going different places. And then one of my friends had started a company called VWAA, which no longer exists as well. And that was the place where they asked me, they said, "Hey, would you be willing to come to here, wrestle for us, and then be the head trainer at this school?" And I said, yes. I remember going there, and they were more lenient about working other places, so I would work there. That was like my home promotion, and I would work other places, like in Indianapolis and Wisconsin and stuff. I never went anywhere too far out until maybe... 2012, 2013, I started wrestling for Shikara on the East Coast.
Yes.
And that was very like they would fly me out, and I'd be wrestling pretty much 3 times a weekend, um, every other week or every week sometimes. I remember there was a span of 6 months where I was literally gone every weekend, which was kind of cool. It was fun at the time while I was doing it. But yeah, and then it just snowballed from there, where it's just it's kind of like in the best way I could explain it to people that aren't in wrestling is it's kind of like an indie rock band where you just drive from gig to gig to gig, hoping to get a break, and then once somebody likes you, they give you a spot, and there you go. You have to go out there and make a name for yourself, but you have to do it in the right places. I would always say.
Did you have any bad experience with any organization?
No. I feel like I've been as professional as possible, and so have everyone that I've ever wrestled with.
Okay.
There was this one time in Milwaukee, and this was just me being naive and new into wrestling. There was this one guy. This is going to show you how old it is. He contacted me through MySpace.
Whoa.
Yeah, he contacted me and a bunch of other people that are friends of mine, and he said, "Oh, I'm starting this new promotion." Like, he didn't have a name for the promotion. It was just some random guy that nobody knew, and everyone was just thinking, "Oh, it's going to be a new place." He said, "I'm going to start this new promotion. I'm going to pay you X amount of money." And it was more than I had normally gotten paid at the time. So, of course, I was like, "Oh, it's even better." And we all drove up, and it was a show in Milwaukee, and we all did the wrestling show. It was, looking back at it, it was just very unorganized. Red flags were everywhere, but we didn't. We just thought, "Oh, it's just for a show. He just probably doesn't, he has to get in the swing of things." And by the time the show was over, we were all waiting around to get paid so that we could all leave. And somebody came down and told us, "Hey, he just left."
Whoa.
He took all the money and just left and didn't pay the wrestlers, didn't pay the guys for the ring, to rent the ring, didn't pay the guys that were doing the music, didn't pay the venue. He just left.
Wow.
So that's probably like my only bad experience in wrestling.
But like you said, it's you're coming up, you're naive.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know any better, and he painted a good picture. So now I'm kind of just always like, there's questions that I ask, and I mean no disrespect by it, but it's just I guess I'm still shell shocked from that whole experience, that I always ask questions when I get asked about new places that I'm not familiar with.
How do you go about constructing a match with that opponent?
That just basically goes then into just into what you learn at wrestling school. Okay. And that's why it's very key to pick a school that can show you how to construct a wrestling match together and what to do, things like when to do certain things and when not to do certain things and stuff like that. And that's why, like I said, it's best to find like the best wrestling school that can give you the best experience and all that. So basically, you just stand there and you talk to your opponent, and that's it. But yeah, exactly what you said. Where I always tell people, because like one of the number one questions I always get asked, like, so it's fake, right? And I always tell people, the characters are, the outcome can sometimes be, and then the stories,
right, are
fake. And then I tell them everything else, and I always stand by this too. Everything else is real. So the falls on the ground, the strikes that we take, everything. I've had people that have elbowed me in the face, and I broke my orbital bone, broke my nose. I've had probably 3 or 4 concussions from getting kicked in the head. It's just, yeah.
So I was, doing some research on you, and it looks like you've won some championships. What was it like the first time you won your championship?
Which championship?
Well, let's start at the beginning.
So, funny thing is, my first ever match, I won a championship. I had no idea. I had no idea. I remember my first match. It was me, and I was with that guy Marche as well, and another guy. And at the company that we were at, Windy City, they were notorious for having a lot of like just different belts. They had 6-man tag team, and then a wide range of other titles. And then they had the league championship, and then the heavyweight championship, cruiserweight championship. Or not cruiserweight, it was lightweight, inner city champion, and then all these other champions. They had a lot of belts, and one of them was the 6-man. So we were in 6-man tag, and we went against the champions, the 6-man tag champions.
Okay.
And that was my first match, and we won the belts on my first. It was just kind of weird, and because I had no idea. I was just excited for having a match finally, and I think it was about 15 minutes before we went out, they said, "Hey, give the belts to the guys and have them take pictures before they go out, so that way they could look, they could have pro pictures taken." And I remember grabbing the belt and just thinking to myself, "Wait, are we winning?" And he said, "Yeah, why do you look shocked?" And I'm like, "Because it's my first match." And he said, "Yeah, you earned it." It's my first match. So I was just more so shocked. I didn't really have that many emotions. I think I was more so engulfed in the emotion of having my first match. Because I see my students that I have now, just the fact of having their first match, like it's essentially you are finally chasing a dream and you're realizing like, hey, I'm actually a wrestler now, or I'm on my way to becoming a wrestler because I'm actually going to get in the ring and perform and do all these things. So for that, I guess the feeling of having my first match kind of overshadowed the fact that I won a belt.
Right. Yeah.
It's always funny just to say that though, because people will talk about how their first matches were this or that and this and that. And they're like, "What about your first match?" And I'm like, "Oh, I won a belt on my first match." I'm like, "What the?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I don't know." Like,
luck of the draw. What about for freelance?
Freelance. So I was the first ever freelance wrestling champion, and I was champion for 364 days.
Missed a bad one.
The funny thing is, too, a funny story that not a lot of people know. We didn't plan this, but when I lost the belts, it was literally the day before it turned 365, and the match ended at 11:59.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was like, seriously, we couldn't make this up.
Wow.
Everybody was just amazed. They said, "You literally lost the belt at 11:59." I said, "What?" I was like, "Yeah." As soon as they hit 3, it was 11:59. I was like, "Oh!" I was like, had it been one more minute, it would have been 365 days. But the first time winning it, it was just more so. It was a good nervous. Okay. Because the company was just starting. Nobody knew who we were. Nobody knew who I was. I mean, people still don't know who I am, but at the time, like, our fans didn't really have that much of a connection with a lot of guys. Mm-hmm. So still building everything. And it was really stressful and anxiety ridden and a lot of pressure for the owner to say, "Hey, here's the belts, make it mean something with your matches." And I like to believe that I did that, because when I lost it to Mustafa Ali, who's in WWE right now.
Correct.
That's literally my favorite match that I've ever had. And one of the big reasons why is because, usually when guys lose belts, everybody, like, of course, everybody goes, like, they react and they cheer and everything. But I had been a heel during that time, and I built it up to a point where everyone wanted to see me lose. So when he finally beat me, literally everyone jumped out of their seats and went towards the ring and was pounding the mat. And nobody was sitting down, everyone was standing, and they were literally cheering for about 2 minutes after that.
Well, that shows how good of a heel you were doing that everyone hated you and everyone was just elated that you lost, and just that reaction is something that I know you cherish just because you've been working for that.
Yeah, and it also helped too that I was in there with a guy like Ali, who is as amazing as he is. Like, he's an amazing wrestler, and he helped me make that moment too. It wasn't just me by myself.
How long was Ali at Freelance?
So that was June of, crap, I can't remember. I think it was June of 16. I think he had debuted there that February before he beat me. And he was there for how long? He beat me in June. He left that December was his last match because that's when he got signed to WWE.
Wow.
So he was almost there for a year. But he left a really big mark because for that year, people always associate, when they think of Freelance, they remember that Ali was champion.
Yeah, I remember talking to you about that match, and you're like, yeah, you need to watch it. I'm like, okay, cool. And I pulled it up, and I was like, this is an awesome match. It really is an awesome match. So you talked about you were a heel while you were doing your championship run.
Yeah.
Do you like being a heel or a babyface?
Yep.
Yep.
I was always so again, going back to the Windy City days, for the first 2 years when I was there, they always saw me as a face all the time. There's you just scream good guy, and I was just the stereotypical cookie cutter good guy, not really much, no personality at all whatsoever. And then I remember one time they had me be a heel randomly at one show, and I just so much emotion and personality came out of me. Because at that point, you just want people to hate you, so you're willing to make yourself look like an ass and just do whatever you want, right? And I remember my friends coming back, they're like, I didn't know that you could do that. And I said, oh. So it was they gave me that one match where I was a heel, and then I was face again. So I was literally face until 2008 when the company, BWAA, my friend who was booking, he had said, hey, I want you to finally be a heel. And that's when I was able to just kind of bring it out of me. But it wasn't until Freelance, that whole entire year that I was champion, that's when I really kind of found myself and found who I kind of am ring and everything as a heel. And from that point on, I remember the promoter just always telling me, just be you for the rest of the time. Just be you forever. Or just be that character all the time. Just be Isaias, they would always tell me. Because I would ask them, hey, now that I lost, what do you guys want me to do? Because they're kind of starting to cheer for me. And he said, I was like, do you want me to still stay heel or you still want me to be face? And he said, just be Isaias. I'm like, okay, you're not telling me what to do. And he says, well, just be you and just do all the crappy stuff that you do, but acknowledge the fans now. Oh, okay, so it's my version of being a good guy.
Right, not so much like you said, the cookie cutter, but your version of it. I'm still going to be me. You're going to cheer me now because I'm a face, but I'm still going to do the stuff I was doing before.
Yeah, and that was... So I'm heel now.
Okay.
At Freelance, I went back to being a heel, and I enjoy that a lot more.
Do you?
I feel more freedom being a heel.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can pretty much do anything as a heel because you're trying to invoke a reaction, and as a face, you're trying to get liked, and I think that's even harder.
Yeah, because I know there's been times when I've been a face and I'm trying to get the crowd behind me, and of course there's always that one fan that says, "Oh, you still suck." And I turn and I look and I'm like, "Oh, come on, man!" But I have to watch what I say as opposed to me being a heel. If somebody says you suck, I could turn around and just flame them.
Yeah.
Which I normally do, because I remember somebody yelled out something at me and the two guys that are like kind of like in a small little group that are with me. I remember we were beating down some guy in the ring, and then some guy just yelled out. He said something about them too, and I literally just turned to him and I just smoked him, and he just stood quiet, like he just stayed sitting, and it just had that like nervous smile of just like, crap, you got me. And literally everybody around him was pointing at him and laughing at him. I feel bad like thinking about that now, but it's at the time like I'm in the moment, so I'm trying to do my job.
I mean, I've been to a couple of your shows, and you know, I watch wrestling from here and there, and it's, you know, the fans want to be part of the show. And especially in the independent circuit, they feel like they are part of the show. They are,
absolutely.
They feel like they have that responsibility to get in your face and try to invoke the reaction from you.
Yeah.
What was that like the first time you got out there and you got flamed, or you know, you got that reaction? You were like, whoa, I didn't expect this.
It was just surprising, and it's the other thing too, that as I feel like as a heel, you have to be very quick-witted.
Yes.
And I mean, I forgot what somebody said. Somebody told me something, and I had no comeback for it. And then I looked at him and I leaned close to him, and I was like, that was a good one. And I just walked away. Because at that point, like, at least exactly like how you said, at that point, you know, he felt like he was part of the show, and you know, he legitimately got me. And that's one of the things that I love about, because you've been to the freelance shows.
Right.
And you see the atmosphere. Like, everybody there wants to be a part of the shows, and all the performers that are on the show, I feel like we do our best to get them involved in the show. And that just gives us a very different vibe than every other wrestling show. Everybody always describes freelance as like, oh, it's a party that we're going to. It's a party that happens to have wrestling and all these characters that involve us in the party as well too. And that's why I truly enjoy working and wrestling at freelance. It's just that's how it always. It's fun. It's always fun.
Have you been approached by other organizations to join them now since you've been at freelance?
Well, it's not. See, so like with independent wrestling, it's not like how WWE, Impact, Ring of Honor, like AEW. It's not like how they offer you contracts and then you sign them and then you go with them.
Right.
Like, you literally are an independent contractor.
Okay.
And I'll get hit up and ask like, hey, I have this show available, or I have this date. I would really like to use you on this show. Are you available? Can you do it? And then you go from there, right? So there's, like mainly I would tell you is that freelance is my home promotion. And I don't see that changing anytime in the near future at all whatsoever. But there's also a company that I wrestle for in Milwaukee called Mando Lucha.
Okay.
They're a company that I wrestle for in Indiana, Crown Point, Indiana, called Black Label Pro. There is a company that I wrestle for close to Toronto. I think it's like in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Okay. It's called Alpha One Wrestling. So those are the places that I wrestle for mainly. There were other promotions that I wrestled for in Chicago, but I'm trying to stick to just freelance now because I feel like it just, not to say that I'm special, but like if people know that they could only see me at freelance, it'll make them more inclined to want to go to freelance as opposed to, oh, that's Isaias. Yeah, you could see him any weekend here in Chicago.
Give it more like kind of an exclusive. Like, I'm only here. Yeah. You can only see me here. Yeah.
Yeah, it is my own. That's my own decision. Nobody, like, I'm not on a contract. Nobody is told, like, especially at freelance, nobody is told, hey, you could wrestle only here. The promoter is one of the nicest and coolest guys ever, and he's like, yeah, whatever you want to do, it's up to you.
So I know we're. It looks like we might be coming off some restrictions. Do you have any word on when your next show could be, or when it could take place, or where it could take place?
No idea. No idea. Trust me, I have asked the promoter at Freelance, and he is, me and him are under the impression that we're probably not going to be able to have shows until maybe like next year.
Right.
Because of all these restrictions that they're having. I mean, it's awesome that Chicago is finally opening up to the point where we can have 10 people and, outside situations. But I just hope it doesn't fall into the trend of other states that were opening up too soon, and then everybody was ordered under another stay-at-home service because the numbers spiked.
Right.
Yeah.
So, lastly, what is your next steps going forward? What are your aspirations from this point forward? Obviously, we were hoping that everything opens up when we get back to a normal lifestyle. We can enjoy going out and enjoying different types of events. But where do you see yourself going in the future?
As far as wrestling or just in general?
Wrestling. We do in general afterwards.
Wrestling, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing because I am actually, I used to, like how I told you, like I used to work as a personal trainer, and I gambled on myself and quit and decided to take that step to see if I could make wrestling my living.
Right.
And so far it's worked. And I've been able to live off of wrestling, despite all of this stuff too. Wrestling and like training, so like wrestling shows and then being a trainer at the school. So I'm kind of just, I'm not settling or I'm not content. I'm just like, I'm happy with where I'm at right now. And I'm more so of a person of, if the opportunity presents itself, then I'll take advantage. But I don't like to put myself in unattainable positions, because then I feel when you do that to yourself, you just open the doors for you to become very bitter and resent a lot of things.
Yeah, agreed.
Would I like to be? Would I like to get offered a contract by like the major wrestling companies? Absolutely. Would I take that opportunity? Probably yes, more than likely. But is it going to kill me if I never get offered a contract? No. And I feel like I'm just being realistic.
Yeah.
And honestly, wrestling for Freelance right now and all the other companies that I named, it's always fun when I go there. And I just always want to I always want to have that mentality where I'm always just having fun. I never want to go to a wrestling show and feel like it's work. So if I could just keep riding that and maybe have other companies offer me a spot and I feel the same way, then that's what I'm going to do. Just going to have fun,
I mean, that's what everyone says, right? Follow your passion and it'll never be work.
Exactly, yeah. And then also, too, what's meant for you won't pass you. And if it's meant for me to eventually one day have a contract, it'll happen. If not, then at least I'm cherishing and not taking for granted the opportunities that I'm having right now. And that's the way that I see it.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you're a huge Blackhawks fan, so I know you're excited about hockey coming through now with the...
Wait, when is it? I didn't hear it.
So they're going to have a expanded playoff. So they're going to be playing the Oilers in the first round.
Dude, so I saw that on Instagram. I was actually watching hockey videos right before we started talking. I saw that the Blackhawks were playing the Oilers, and I was curious. I was like, what's happening? Because I didn't know.
Yeah, so that they're still coming up with the logistics and so forth, but looks like they'll be playing each other for the first round. So the Blackhawks are in the playoffs.
Nice. Amazing. That's good news. Thank you for the news.
No problem. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everything. I really appreciate it. I had a great time talking to you, man.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me. It was awesome.
No problem. All right, man. Take care.
You too.
We'll do this again.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of True Chicago Sports Fans, the podcast. Please remember to hit the subscribe button wherever you may get your podcast.